I haven't started it. I've only
It's
started
fine. I'll eat peanut butter.
I feel like
I will eat peanut butter.
order, it's fine. Eat it.
How do you spell functions? How does one spell functions?
And I got my hair done. I can do a lot of things in one night, but I can't do one. You tell me to read 10 things, I can't do it. You tell me not to do a PowerPoint cupcake, I need 10 things, I can do it. Our offering. Oh, you can explain to your work too.
Yeah, no, we got through. So, yeah, and I think the general.
So this is Vincent. Nobody else, right?
Hey, Carolyn. Can I spell some functions?
Some what? Oh, I know how to do that. Where are you from? This one? Is it? Where's your... It's called font? Still not the font? Do you have your old the file on the thing so I can try to re-put it back in? Oh. Which one is the different font? This?
Should be this.
You can save it as a PDF and you can still click like while I'm doing this, just in case.
Yeah.
Tina, do not show that to George because I told him that. Oh, we're in the hospital. I just felt bad because he was the forward. And now I'm like,
Save it, just the response.
because he was like, can I get a cupcake? And I was like, no, it's for us. Oh, wow. No, but it was kind of like it was, I had to get my costume first. Sorry about that. Well, I guess before talking to her. No, we share. We share.
No problem. Don't tell us.
Anyway, it's our turn.
Okay, everyone. Please come in. Grab the last two people. Okay, everyone. Yes.
So good afternoon, everybody. Our project, M2U00004, aims to redevelop the Wellington Basin area by transforming it from an industrial use into a mixed-use development that will have residential, commercial, and some light industrial uses. So when we were first tasked with coming up with a design for this area, we wanted to look at the general context of the surroundings in order to better understand what needs the community have. We found certain issues and certain strengths which we really wanted to address in the design. Three main issues stood out to us. The first one being the physical isolation of this. There's barriers to the west in the train track. The bridge acts as a barrier to the south, and then you have the M2U00004, which is a barrier to the northeast of the site. The second issue is that of the highly mobilized community groups in the surroundings, which we thought was very important to take into consideration at the design phase. They have very high expectations as to the provision of rental, affordable, and social housing, as well as green space. The third issue is that of the environment. Right now we know the site is very contaminated, and we wanted to make sure to design features into our site in order to remediate that situation and mitigate that risk. In terms of strengths, well, there's the beautiful views from the site. You have views onto the canal, views onto downtown, and views onto what is now considered one of the greatest symbols of industrial heritage of Montreal, which is the Dragonfly Roses sign, which is right to the northeast of the site. So from this contextual analysis, we went and we decided on a vision that we wanted for this site. It was to design a project that addressed the issues of the site while putting forth its strengths. We wanted to create value for its residents. We wanted to create values for the residents of the surrounding areas. So what we did was we came up with 6 different guiding principles, and you have them here. 6 different guiding principles that would kind of help us through the design phase of our project. These 6 are water, social equity, industrial heritage, the concept of human scale, the idea of the creative corridor, and of retaining some employment on the site. So let me explain to you these different principles. The first one being heritage. We have 3 main things, the first one being water. We have 3 main things that we wanted to address with the theme of water. The first one being, well, the importance of the Lachine Canal. We think that it's very important to not only open it up to the residents of the surrounding communities and of the site, but also to bring the water into the site somehow. The second was, well, during the contextual analysis, we realized that many developments along the Lachine Canal were actually closing off the canal, which we thought was a big problem. So we wanted to make sure to have equitable access to the canal and the waterfront from all residents, which is why we created different connectors through the site to really make that a clear connection from the inner neighborhood into the water. The other one was to manage our water in such a way that we would reduce the strain on municipal systems, which Christian will talk about a bit later on. The second guiding principle was that of social equity. Now, this was important to us because of the context of the mobilization of the different groups in the surrounding area. So we wanted to make sure to not only take into consideration their needs, but also their wants for the housing type, as well as for the access to green space. We really spread out the green space throughout the area to make sure that everybody would have equal access to green spaces. Now, the third guiding principle was that of industrial heritage. Not only did we want to acknowledge the history of the site, which is still present, we also wanted to use the existing structures as identifiable features to build the site's character. The fourth guiding principle is that of human scale. From the get-go, we wanted to create an environment that was walkable. We wanted to increase the connectivity within the sites and to its surrounding features. To do that, we had to be modest in height throughout the entire neighborhood without sacrificing on density. So we had to be very specific in the types of buildings we were trying to use, which Christian will also talk about in a minute. The fifth guiding principle is that of the creative corridor. During the contextual analysis, we realized that the creative corridor of Montreal was actually passing right through our site. And we thought that would be a nice item to include in our design. We wanted to build value for our site by including artists and bringing in some aspect of culture to our development. We wanted to do this because, first of all, we think that the presence of artists and of creative types can act as a catalyst to the development of a sense of community for areas. And they could act as our pioneers onto the site. And from that, we can gain a real sense of identity and of character. The second one is that we feel like we can leverage the surrounding commercial and residential developments from our regions. The sixth and final guiding principle is that of employment. Right now, the master plan states that this site is actually zoned as a site for employment. Although we think this might not be appropriate for our vision of the area, we feel that keeping some form of employment in the site is very important for various reasons. First of all, we value communities where one can live, work, and play. Second of all, we feel that having long-term tenants right from the get-go can really stabilize the development, both financially, but also from the point of view of a community. And then thirdly, we think that it's a strong selling point both with the borough through the process of getting this project accepted, but also with the surrounding community which demand employment. So now that I've explained these key guiding principles, I'll let Christian talk about the features that relate to these.
Thank you, Vincent. For the purpose of explaining our 6 guiding principles, I'll take you through the different parts of our plan that we have identified. The first of these, and which is the focal point of our neighborhood, is the Wellington Basin, located here on our master plan. We propose with the Wellington Basin to widen it to its original width so that it could recall its importance as a key infrastructure piece in what was once the cradle of industry, the Canal La Chine. We also feel that it can create value for the surrounding properties if we were to widen the basin, which would then have good frontal access to the park and to the basin itself. Within the basin, we proposed a bioretention pond that would treat stormwater runoff and help us meet one of our guiding principles of good water management design while potentially reducing costs of sewage management. Moving further east, we have our second focal point, which is the old silos located here on our master plan. As you can see, we've partitioned the silos into 2 separate parts, the north and the south. The northern silos are retained fully as they are, but they are not inhabited. Nonetheless, they are included in a new residential building, yes, that will give on to the canal and provide good views of downtown. On the other hand, the southern silos will be integrated into a public park, and only the base of the silos will remain, so it won't be fully built out. And we envision for the landscaping of this public park that it could be kind of like the vegetation overtaking the old industrial building. At the base of the park, we also propose perhaps something like a plaque that could recall the history of the site, while also explaining the importance of the silos for the identity of the community in the present day. We also feel that the feel of the park would be one of a kind of transitional space where the old industrial history of our site meets the new dynamic Point Osilo. Moving further east from the old silos, we have the Tate Park located here on our master plan, which recalls the existence of the approximate location anyway, of the dry dock that once existed on our site. We feel that it's important to provide public access to the canal for the whole community, and so therefore there is a public access way that goes through in between these two buildings located on our site. This would include a water feature that would also serve an environmental function. As mentioned by Vincent, we really wanted to stress equitable access, and so therefore there's access to this park from the west through this pathway and to the east to our creative corridor, which I will explain next. So in the easternmost portion of our site, we have our proposed creative hub. Now you might ask, why here? Why create a creative hub here? Well, we have several reasons. First of all, if you look east of our site, there is Espace Vert located on Mill Street, which is an artisanal space. And there's also two heritage listed buildings that could also house in the future artists. So we wanted to really latch onto that as something that could define our site. We also looked at past precedents, for example in Rosemont, where artists were included in investment proposals, where artists actually helped create value, and we thought, yes, that this could help create value for our site, and we thought that this was, again, a good way to do so. But as you know, however, artists need one thing that is particularly hard to come on, that's affordable space, both to do their work as well as somewhere affordable to live. We handle this in two specific ways. First of all, we have the old industrial building, which will be cheaper to rehabilitate, it's not new. And within this building, we're proposing to pay the first two rents of any artist that comes to work here, while subsidizing the subsequent years, while also providing social and affordable housing throughout the site that would be available to the artists. For example, there's one here, which is shown in purple, which is a social housing. And the old industrial building is shown in blue. So now that I've dealt with the creative corridor, the Tate Park, the Wellington Basin, I will now deal with the overall housing character of the site, which can be typified into two separate areas, divided by Oak Street in the middle, or Rue Oak, depending. So you have the north and the south. The north, we feel, is the most valuable part of our site because it offers good views of downtown. It includes the Wellington Basin, the Tate Park, and it also has a public park and bike path along the Lishing Canal. So this is where we go tallest. This is a max generally of 10 stories with the exception of this building, which reaches 10 stories, sorry, but the rest are 8 stories. So we're trying to do this because we want to respect the character of the Lishing Canal, where buildings generally do not rise above 8 stories. Also, a pedestrian bridge shown here in brown will provide accessibility for our residents to services further north, because we don't think we have the population to sustain a lot of retail on our site. So I will deal now with the southern section, which stresses a more human-scale environment that is eminently walkable. So you have 3 to 4 story walk-up apartments, so there's apartments on each level, with good backyard space. You have nice street walk too that isn't overwhelming. So this would also be our family space, and it is where, if you look at our affordability level map, where most of our affordable and social housing is located. Within the southern section, we have a pedestrian tunnel that goes under the railway to provide access for our residents to surrounding areas, as well as providing them access to our site so that they can visit the Wellington Basin and the Creative Hub. Here we have a proposed green wall to hide the Lotto Quebec building, which we think was kind of a barrier. It's not nice. And as well, we have rain gardens on our sidewalks that will extend the idea of water further south because the basin doesn't go that far south, and we think that this is one of the key selling features of our development plan. Overall, the plan works by creating links between the different parts. So you have a link here that I described earlier from the Wellington Basin through the Tate Park to the Creative Hub. You also have a walkable grid on the south part. So we think that this is, again, a human scale environment that will work well. Now, in terms of the financial analysis, while we thought that while the 6 core principles were integrated throughout our planning, we also looked at financial viability in every step of the planning process. To do so, we sought out every possible avenue to mitigate risk. For example, by including 15% social housing, 24% affordable housing, dispersing it throughout the site so that it's not segregated, and in doing so, responding to community mobilization and price essential that will want some perhaps more commitment from developers in purely a profit motive. But again, we are profitable. And in terms of the phasing, we have a 10-phase and generally it will take 10 years, we expect. But it's relatively flexible because we're planning to deliver it in portions so that not one portion has to be done right away. You can respond to market conditions. And also we would start with the key infrastructure features first because they help to define the site from the get-go. Yes, conclusion. So while the 6 guiding principles informed our plan in general, and it will also make a project that is already very profitable, good for the community and for the environment, something that we feel is important as well. So I would now invite my teammates to come and ask any questions that you may have.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me because the borders are pretty small. After the color, where's what? Like the density and the social, and is this townhomes in the middle of the grid?
Well, yeah,
Just quick review of the.
these here were, I'll show you. Affordable, yeah. Basically, these are triplexes, all these here. And we have some 4-story walk-ups. Here we have up to 6-story walk-ups. Here is actually a mix of commercial and office use on Bridge. This is kind of more of a luxury condo development with higher, I think it's up to between 6 and 8 stories. We have a 10-story building here, and then you have some, it's a very beautiful building that's there right now, and we're keeping it, we're actually changing the building that's adjacent to it, and we're transforming that into some sort of office artist space. Yeah, work loft, exactly. And then right next to it is some more kind of the same, and you have the social housing right around here.
So all social is on that one.
No, so social is here, and then we have some, this is social housing here, we have social housing here, here, and then this building here, which is on the parking for the family aspect. Yeah, that was one of the main objectives in social equity, is to kind of not segregate them and get it honest.
This is something we discussed also, is you reach, you say 11% park space. Obviously you have distributed park space throughout the site. And it would be interesting to see how you can use those parks. Do you have a special vision on them serving different purposes? Is there one for small kids and one for, because there's one by the Raceway on Bridge Street that looks more like leftover green space. So how
Probably speak for that. So you were talking about this one?
both?
Yeah, so this one was basically to make the the way to the tunnel more pleasant, so that it's not a scary place where no one goes. The idea of having the smaller parks was again with the idea of to be consistent with the idea of keeping the site to a human scale. And we feel that those parks are not actually small. If you go to Parc des Amériques, Parc des Portugais, in the plateau in this area, they are usually 30 to 40 meters by maybe 50, and that's